Hi, welcome to the channel, Transformation Multidimensional Healing. My name is Craig Hankey. I am a holistic healer, empath, and intuitive. On this channel, I'm sharing all kinds of practical self-healing tools, techniques, and information to help empower each one of us on our own personal ascension journeys. Welcome. I was being called to speak about how energetic shifts actually affect our physical bodies.
Rebirth. I'm done with that. I'm right on track. I'm done with that. I'm right on track. I'm done with that. I'm right on track. Time for rebirth.
As the vibration and energies increase, everything in your body that is no longer a vibrational match for that energy then becomes a toxin and has to be removed from the body. So that's the basic idea of escalating energies triggering all of these physical releases of toxins. It's because, all of these particles are no longer a vibrational match as the energies escalate. And so then once again, what was okay a second ago is now not okay, and your body needs to get rid of it and flush it out. So that's just something to keep in mind of in terms of ascension symptoms. Is almost always just a complete overload of toxins, and it's really depends on your own personal genetics and body makeup how those overwhelming toxins, which usually causes nutritional deficiencies. How all that's going to show up individual symptom wise varies body to body and body type and personality and genetics and stuff. So, but that's just something to keep in mind with escalating energies. That's what's going on. It's all ultimately a super positive thing. But the other thing I wanted to comment on, because the process as I see it is, and this is, I'm speaking from, I've been on my healing journey for 36 years now, and have gone through lots of shifts and changes over that time. And um and so one of the things is, when you're coming up to a big level change and shift, there's always a buildup. It's always that like crunch time. It's always like the energies come. It's like, I don't know, not to be too gross, but like a pimple. Things are coming to a head. Everything's getting gathered. Everything that needs to get pulled out. Everything that the patterns, habits. Everything that needs to be cleared. Everything gets gathered and it starts coming to like a pressurized point, and you can feel that. They can sometimes call it the darkest before the dawn, and there's various other idioms like that out there, but it really is about those energies coming to a climax. And so you have the buildup, then you have the breakthrough, which oftentimes can be a mixed bag of like amazing, but also again the release of all of this toxicity, because then the next step is um, processing and cleansing. You're um, processing out everything that's no longer a vibrational match, and cleansing and clearing that out of your body, hopefully. Um, and if you're not, and you're not keeping up, that's when you start having ascension symptoms. And then finally, integration, where you're integrating the energies. You're through the kind of physical toxin release, you've integrated the energies. And so, that's kind of the basic process as I see it with energetic shifts in our physical bodies. But the other thing I wanted to comment along those lines is that I don't want to be all like back in my day, but it did used to be. Things have only been, again, I've been on this journey for 36 years, and since I was 21, and and things have just been, exponentially getting faster and faster and faster. But it used to be, you'd have a few at least in my experience, again, back in I was in my Saturn return at that time, and into my 30s, you'd have a few big shifts a year, usually, kind of thing, sometimes around the solstice or the equinoxes. And you'd go through that process. You'd go through that build up. You'd go through the climax, the breakthrough, the processing and cleansing, and then the integration. But that might last like 6 months. It was like a whole different time thing where there was a little bit more, even as things were accelerating and still felt fast for the time. And they were as fast as they could go, obviously, back then. But there was a spaciousness, and there was space and time to actually go through these shifts in a maybe slightly more sane feeling and less stressful way. But so fast forward now, we've been on this like just exponential, especially these last few years, of things just going so fast. And the reality now is that there's no time between those levels of shifts. We're all going through these really big shifts constantly, so we're always in one varying degree. All of these shifts and changes are overlapping. And so we're in different places in those journeys, build up, breakthrough, processing, cleansing, integration, but all happening at once. There's no downtime in between. So it's just something else to keep in mind in terms of being gentle with yourself, cutting yourself slack, understanding the level, scope, and scale of what's actually happening here on the planet and in our bodies, and literally transfiguring our bodies down to the molecule, for the first time during this ascension process. So be kind and gentle with yourself for sure. And along those lines, one of the best ways to be kind and gentle to your body is by eating as healthy a diet as you possibly can. But so I offer two kinds of one-on-one client sessions. I do ease of digestion based nutritional healing with intuitive diet workups and intuitive counseling. And I would highly recommend that because I was just talking about how important our bodies are, how unique this whole process is. And another thing to remember is, because this is the first time we're carrying our bodies forward through this process, our bodies have no frame of reference for this. There's no manual, there's no, it's all uncharted territory for them. So the easiest to digest foods with easy to digest food-based supplements is a great way to support and give your body the nutrients, the raw materials it needs to be constantly healing and cleansing, but without adding any additional stress to your body that it doesn't need at this point in the journey. And if you don't have any symptoms, if you're just like, woo, 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 then more power to you. But I would say that the majority of people are ranging in that scale of sometimes they're okay, and then they have a little flare up of this or that, and then maybe they're okay, or maybe some people just have constant stuff. For more information about this ease of digestion based nutritional healing approach that I offer, check out my website at ascensionfirstaid.com. You'll find a lot more information about the experience of the diet and the experience of a session with me, which of course I do remotely over Zoom or phone. So I'm available around the world. And I do also offer general intuitive sessions with intuitive counseling and intuitively answering questions and providing guidance, along with what I call whole being life coaching, which is, basically addressing issues on all levels of your being. Until next time, in love and light.